Welcome to Figure Feedback. My name is Jeremy, and both of these laser engravers are from Algolaser, and they are both a part of their Pixi series, but one of them is newer than the other one. So this one right here, the one that's mostly black, is the first Algolaser Pixi that I did a video on months ago. I'll link to it so that you can check it out. But this one right here that is red is also the Algolaser Pixi, but it comes equipped with a different laser that is specialized in engraving things that are metal. So this one has a 1064 nanometer IR laser, and then the other one, the older Algolaser Pixi, comes in 3 different variants. You can get a 3-watt version, a 5-watt version, or a 10-watt version with a diode laser. And those lasers are good for, you can engrave things like wood, for example, and depending on the type of laser that you get, you can even carve through and cut through certain pieces of wood as well. But as far as engraving on metal goes, it's not going to be quite as good as an IR laser. But I just got both of these out on the table just so you can see that they are essentially the same machine, except for the laser module that is used for them. All right, so they look very much the same, but let me just take this one and move it over to the side, and we'll just focus on the 1064 IR laser version of the Pixi. So in case you're not familiar with the Pixi and its design and the strong parts of it, I'm just going to briefly go over that in case you didn't see the previous video about it. So like you see here, it's just a small desktop laser engraver, and it's designed to be used without a computer. With a lot of laser engravers, the vast majority of them, if you really want to get the most out of it or really do anything beyond just maybe some basic sample engraves, then you're going to need to connect it to a computer, and you're going to have to run some software in order to get the files that you want to be put on the laser engraver so that you can start working with them. But what Algolaser did is develop this operating system that they call AlgoOS. It's built into this, and it allows you to engrave things without using a computer. Now, you can still do that because on the back of this machine, here are the different ports and stuff that you have on it. It's where the power cable goes, and then you also have a USB-C connection back here as well. And you can plug your USB-C cable into the back of this, and then you can plug the other end into your computer, and then you'll be able to use software such as Lightburn. That is probably the most popular laser engraving / laser cutting software out there, but it's not free. It'll cost you either $100 for a regular version of it or $200 for a pro version of it. Or if you want to go the free route, there's also Laser GRBL that you can download and get some similar functionality for free if you don't want to spend that money. But then also back here, there's the power switch. And then you also have a port for the rotary tool, which is an optional purchase. So if you wanted to engrave like water bottles, for example, you can do that with the optional rotary tool. And then also back here, you have this holder for your focusing tool. And because this laser is considered to be on the lower end as far as its price goes compared to other lasers, this particular one will cost you about $350. That means that you are going to have to do some things yourself, such as focusing the laser. It doesn't have autofocus. So instead, you have to take this little tool here and you have to place it onto the material that you want to engrave. And then there's this little knob on top of the laser head that you can just turn, and it'll rotate and it'll send the laser head up, or it'll make it go down. And then you basically just make sure that it comes into contact with the top of this leveling tool. And then you're going to be pretty much in focus, or at least good enough in focus. So this is something that you need to make sure that you keep safe, and then you can just store it back here. But you can also take these little metal parts here, you can unscrew these, and then you can lift this base up in case you want to laser engrave something that is taller than what the base height will allow you to engrave. So you'll be able to lift this up to give you some more space. And you see all these various holes right here. It goes all the way up to 25 millimeters right here. And there's 50, there's 75, and then there's 100 millimeters down here. So it's nice and labeled for you. in case you need to engrave some things that are taller. Nothing on the side of this laser engraver. And then it also comes with this little lid here that you can just take off. And then on the sides, you've got this somewhat clear, but it's still a bit darkened protective cover. This protective cover will make sure that the laser is not activated when it is, well, working. So if you or anyone else were to, try to start the laser while the lid is up, then it just won't start. It has to be down before it can start. So that's a good safety feature because you are dealing with lasers. And even though it has these protective coverings, I would also still recommend using some type of approved eye protection just to be on the safe side. I know it can be very tempting to just stare at the laser while it's doing its thing because you want to see the magic happening. But since you only have one pair of eyes, I have two pair of eyes, but still you want to make sure that you can protect yourself. So they do that for you to an extent, but you'll have to go the extra mile just so you can be, totally sure. And then you just have this resistive touchscreen on the front of the laser, as well as a little button that you can use to start and stop the engraving. Now, along with the laser, you're also going to get this pen tool here. And because this is a resistive touchscreen, and you can do things such as draw on the touchscreen, and then you can make those drawings be the thing that you engrave. But in order to do that, it's easier to use this tool because since it's resistive, it's not going to be like your phone screen where everything is pretty much accurate, almost one-to-one as you move your finger across it. So instead, you have this pen tool here. And as you can see, it has this little tip on it that it rotates, is very soft. And this just makes it easier for you to interact with the screen should you choose to draw something, or if you just want to go through the regular menu options and you're just clicking away on it. There's another very important thing that you get with this as well, and that is this tube here that you can use to extract any potential fumes away from your work area into the outside. It stretches just like this to give you a little bit more length, and you can just collapse it back down. And it is designed to go on the back of the laser engraver, just like this. And you can twist it into place to just lock it down. And then you just put this outside of a window, or if you got some type of exhaust port where you are, you can do that to just extract those fumes from the inside to the outside. And that'll be good for you, especially if you're going to be engraving on materials that can produce some pretty noxious fumes. So, safety is always going to be first with that. And another thing that they do with this Algo OS to make it easier for you to just get up and running without having to worry about dialing in the correct settings or the optimal settings for the laser, you can choose the image that you want, and then you're taken to this processing page where you choose the type of material that you want to use. And when you pick it, they give you this chart that approximately tells you what the engraving is going to look like as far as how dark it's going to be or how light it's going to be. And then you choose the one that you think is going to look best for you. So if I choose this stainless steel option here, you can see I can pick between each of these different squares in order to get the look that I think that I'm going for. And it tells you how fast the speed is going to be relative to the amount of power the laser is going to use. And it's going to do that for each of the materials that is inside of that particular file. Now, it's not going to do that with every single file. So if you were to get your own file and put it on here, and let's say it's a JPEG, and then you go to engrave, it may not give you the option of choosing from that grid of squares. It does do that with the files that they have built in here, but when I've tried to do some images that I just grabbed off of the web. Instead of showing me those grids, it just gives me the option to choose the power level that I want and the speed that I want and how many passes that I want to do. So from that perspective, you do have to go through that bit of trial and error in order to get the look that you want, instead of having them lay it out for you so that you can see exactly what it is that you're going to get in the end, or at least close to what you're going to get at the end. And then once you choose what your parameters are going to be, it'll take you to this screen where you'll see the thing that you're trying to engrave relative to the space that you have to engrave. And you can use this touchscreen to move the image around, and you can see that the laser head is going to move in relation to wherever this image is on the screen. And you resize it the way that you want. And then in order to test where it's going to be engraving, you see that there's this crosshair that's always on with this red light. And you're going to use that to just sort of line up whatever it is that you're trying to engrave so that you can try to keep it within those boundaries. You can hit this framing button here on the screen, and it's going to move and let you know where it's going to be engraving. Now, this is just going to be a very, I'll say, a approximation of where it's going to go, because this is where I have run into the thing that makes me say to you in this video, I am not all that great with lasers, at least not with lasers of this particular type, because even though it's easy to get up and running, it's going to be harder to get the exact result that you want as far as getting the size of the image that you want to get and getting the positioning right where you want it to go, because this does not have a camera. On a lot of lasers these days that do have cameras, you're able to take an overlay and put it on the material that you want to engrave on, and then you'll know this is where it's going to be. But with this, you have to rely on this framing system, which just sort of get you in the ballpark. And you'll notice that when you are using that, you might still be off. It may not come out perfect the first time around. You have to play with it. You have to experiment with it, because you may think that you're within the boundaries, but when you're finished engraving, you'll see that you were actually outside of the boundaries. So you need to be prepared to have material that you're willing to sacrifice so that you can get the exact positioning that you want. And then you have to use something, whether it's like tape or a jig or something, to maintain that position with your material. So if you wanted to do multiple things back to back and you want them to be the same, you need to know exactly where it's going to be positioned. Otherwise, they're not going to be the same. Some things are going to be aligned too far left, too far right, too far up, too far down, and that's not what you want. So that is a challenge with this particular laser. They make it easy for the OS from that perspective, but as far as getting the actual results that you want, you need to try it yourself and get it right yourself. And then also, if you want to take files from your computer and put it on here, the only way that you are going to be able to do, or I should say the easiest way that you can do it, is you're going to have to get yourself a USB-C to USB-A adapter. And that looks like this, because this doesn't have an SD card slot that you can put in an SD card, and it doesn't have a regular USB-A slot for you to just connect a regular USB stick to it. You need an adapter like this so that you can take something like a flash drive that's USB-A and you can just insert it into here. See, this is why they do USB-C, so you don't have to worry about which direction you're going to put in it. And then once you do that, you can just stick this into the back of the laser engraver, and then that's how you can access your files. So that's just something else that you got to make sure that you can get your hands on if you want to transfer your files that way without connecting it to your computer and having the computer side by side. Now let's take a look at some things that I engraved that I messed up that, let me tell you, even though these don't look good from a positioning standpoint, the laser does do a very good job of getting some sharp detail. So this is a black acrylic square, kind of like a coaster. And I decided to mark up a compass on here. And my plan was to have the compass basically go over the majority of this black slate here, this black acrylic. And well, the detail turned out really good. It's nice and it's sharp. It didn't take too long to engrave this either, but you see that it's off center and it's not as big as I wanted it to be, because that's the trial and error process of it. This is the first time that I did it. And as you can see, it is very small. And so when I blew it up and I thought I could go across the entire surface, it's bigger, but it's still misaligned and it's still not as big as I wanted it to be, because it's just hard to know what you're actually going to get in the end until you actually try and try and try again. But when you nail it, the detail is pretty darn good, nice and sharp. And I can feel it. I can feel the engraving on here too. It's got a little bit of texture. I think that this turned out really, really good. You'll also see a lot of business cards when you go to buy things that are laser engravable, and they have this metal coating on them. They still flop around like regular business cards, but it's just the coating that's on them is a bit metal. So I use that and I engraved this like moth photo on here. And again, it turned out looking really nice and really sharp, but it's not centered. And for the reasons I explained before. But here's the other thing, especially if you're dealing with lightweight cards just like this, you probably are going to need to secure it to the engraving platform, either with magnets or with painter's tape or something like that. Because if you look inside here, you'll see that I accidentally engraved a picture of a kitty on this plate. And I tried to engrave it on one of these cards instead, but the fan from the printhead ended up blowing the card away, and then it just ended up engraving right there on the plate. Now, I will say it did a really good job of engraving it on that plate. It looks nice, but for lightweight materials, you just got to be cautious of that fan to make sure it does not blow your lightweight materials away. All right, but that did turn out all right. Now, another thing that I wanted to engrave was on some coins, brass coins. All right. So I picked these up, and it's the same story with all these things that I'm showing you. The actual engraving turned out very nice using the default parameters set up for the materials that I use, in this case, brass. I think that this lion's head turned out to be good, but it's not as big as I thought it was going to be. And it's also off center. All right. And then I tried to do something more intricate on the back. And again, engraving looks good, but it's not big enough and it's off center. So I would have to go through a few of these to get it just right. All right. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, this is my failing. This is a skill issue. It is not the issue of the laser. The laser does what it's supposed to do. But since it's not really like an advanced type of laser, since it's a more lower end kind of a laser, you have to put more into it to get the most out of it, as opposed to things being more automatic for you. But I did have better luck when I brought out one of these dog tags, one of these metal dog tags, and I use the algo type feature to make my own text, and then I engrave this. And that's when I learned something that's very important. A lot of the images that you might try to engrave, they have these borders around them. So you can have an image on a white background, and the laser may be taking into account the borders around your image. So it'll show you where the laser is going to engrave, but it's not going to engrave that negative white space on the image that's like on the outside. So instead, it'll focus more on the center. But when it comes to text, there is no border around it. The border is basically where the text ends. So that allowed me to precisely line up the laser on the first time. And I knew that where the middle of that crosshair was, it was going to stay within that precise position. And I managed to get this dead on in the center on my first try. So I think if you're going to be using text for this to engrave dog tags, dog collars, keychains, things like that with customized text on them, it's going to be a lot easier to get it right the first time than trying to work with different images of different colors and shades and stuff like that. This came out to be the most perfect thing that I did. And I used the different text. I forgot what text I used, but this was not the standard text from Algo Text. But yeah, this just turned out looking really, really nice indeed. And I am happy about it. So if you want to engrave things that are metal, this would be the ideal choice for you. If you are really more into wood and leather, and if you want to cut through some stuff, then you'll be more interested in the diode laser offerings that Algolaser has, because that'll allow you to do that more effectively than the regular little IR laser that's inside here. But yeah, that is going to do it. I suck at this, but I like what it does and it looks nice. So I want to thank Algolaser for sending this to me so that I can check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to this so that you can read more about it and see all the other different features or anything that I might have left out. So thank you all so much for watching. Till next time, take care of yourselves and I will speak to you soon.